Okay, so I believe we are ready to go. So good morning, everyone. I am not going to bang a gavel this morning. Welcome. Let's go ahead and start the first committee of the 81st session on Committee on Ways and Means, and it's 8:04, so we're doing great with time. Thank you all very much for tuning in as quickly as you could. So with that, I believe we'll start with Ms. Kaufman. Are you calling roll today, or who do we have calling roll?
Not today. I believe it's the secretary that's calling roll today.
Okay, if we could go ahead and call a roll, please.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Present.
Assemblyman Frierson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdegi.
Here.
Assemblyman Levitt. Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Speaker's on.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Here.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
Chair Carlton.
Is your video on?
And I am here. Well, since you all were recognized as here twice, that does not count for 2 days. So this is just 1 day, okay? So good morning, everyone. This is our committee organization meeting. So how I would like to start today is have all the committee members introduce themselves. So with that, Mr. Speaker, if we could start with you, and then we'll just go through all the folks in the committee. So, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason Frierson, Assemblyman for District. Speaker of the Assembly, and I am, for the edification of the new staff, I am in my and my third as speaker. And so I plan on letting folks that know numbers better than I do go, and would gladly be
Okay. All right. I think we've got some folks who still have their microphones open, and we're getting a little bit of background noise. If everyone could be sure and mute yourselves so we don't get the background noise. Thank you. So with that, if I could go to Ms. Benitez Thompson.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. I'm Teresa Benitez Thompson, and I represent an area of Reno, Northwest Reno, Central Reno, and a piece of Southwest Reno. This is my fourth term being on Ways and Means. It's my last constitutionally allowed term as an assemblywoman, and I've always enjoyed being on this committee all the times. All my subcommittees have pretty much stayed the same. I've been on K12 funding. I was actually on government for a year and a session and a half, and Health and Human Services for half a session. And so I love the subject matter, and it's nice to meet everyone.
Thank you very much. Ms. Monroe Moreno as my vice chair.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno. I represent District 1, and the majority of it's in the city of North Las Vegas. I have a small portion of Las Vegas bumping right up to Assemblyman Roberts. This is my second session on Ways and Means, my third session in the legislature, and I'm excited to be vice chair and hoping to learn all that I can from the chair and Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson before they leave us. So excited to get going.
Righty, thank you. Next, I'll go to Ms. Gorlow.
Thank you so much. My name is Assemblywoman Michelle Gorlow. I represent Assembly District 35, which is in the southwest of Las Vegas. This is my second term in the legislature, first time on Ways and Means, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you, Ms. Gorlow. And next, I'm just going in line of how they're listed on my committee list. So there's no particular preference here. We'll go to Ms. Miller next.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair. My name is Brittany Miller, and I represent District 5, which is in the Midwestern area of Las Vegas. And this is my third term, but my first term here on Ways and Means. And I'm delighted to be here and learn from, you know, the other end of it, which is not just the policy side, but the actual funding of government. So glad to be here and excited for everything I'll be learning this session. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll go to Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Howard Watts. I have the honor of representing District 15, which covers Central Eastern Las Vegas. And this is my second term in the legislature, my first term on Ways and Means. So I look forward to working with and learning from you all.
Welcome to the committee. With that, I will go to Dr. Titus.
Welcome, everybody. None of you are freshmen, but many of you are newbies to this committee. So thank you for being willing to serve. It's a big lift at times. This is my fourth session and my fourth time on Ways. And I look forward to working with all of you and delving deep into some of these budget issues. I represent District 38, which is rural Nevada. Over the mountains, if you look to the east and south of here, that's where I'm from, and looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Titus. I'll go to Assemblywoman Tolles next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assemblywoman Jill Tolles. I represent Reno, mostly West Reno, all the way up to the California border. And I am really looking forward to being on this committee. I'll echo the words of Assemblywoman Miller that oftentimes we have so many policy discussions and then we start to drift into budget discussions and have to be reminded to pull it back. And this will be my third term, and I'm excited to be able to dive into the budget discussions this time around to get the other side of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My second term here, I'm representing Assembly District 13 in Northwest Las Vegas, next to Assembly District 1 and Danielle Moreno's district. We share a high school together. I'm excited, second term, excited to be on this committee and learn from all the veterans that are here, and I'm looking forward to the session.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I have Mr. Levitt next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Glenn Levitt, I represent District 23, which is as far south as you can go from here. It's South Henderson all the way down to the southern tip of the state. I was happy to be able to serve in some of the interim finance meetings. It was very interesting, but a lot to learn, lot of knowledge to gain, and just happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Levitt, and thank you for stepping in IFC. We appreciate that. I have Mr. Hafen next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gregory Hafen II, District 36. Excited to learn how the budget works and get to work.
Welcome, Mr. Hafen. And Ms. Peters, were you able to join? Are you in the meeting now?
I am. Thank you. I apologize. We had a family birthday this morning, and birthdays are when we celebrate in our family. So thank you for being patient with me or allowing me that grace this morning. I represent Assembly District 24 up in Reno, and that is really the heart of Reno, including our university and Midtown and downtown districts. I'm really excited to be on finance. I think that or on Ways and Means, I think it's a really important piece of the policy puzzle, and I'm looking forward to learning as much as possible this session.
Thank you. So committee members, that's all of our committee, and I am, yes.
Chair Carlton, it's Sandra, Assemblywoman.
Sandra, Ms. Howdiggy, how did I miss you? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'll make it quick. I'm Assemblywoman Sandra Howdiggy. I represent Assembly District 41 in Southern Nevada. It's my third term in the legislature and my second time on Ways and Means, and I'm excited to learn more about the budget. So thank you, Chair.
I am so sorry, Ms. Howdiggy. I don't know how I did that. I just making a list and I didn't check it twice. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Assemblywoman Maggie Carlton. I've chaired Ways and Means since 2013 with a sabbatical in 15, but was on Ways and Means that year. And I look forward to working with all of you. This is going to be a very unique year. And I think it's kind of funny that we're starting on Groundhog Day, which sometimes means you end up in a loop of doing the same thing over and over again, but there is no way anything in this session is going to be the same as it was before. So thank you all for being willing to serve, give of your time, and make the budgets one of your priorities this session, and give of all of your knowledge so that we as a team get this all done. This really, Ways and Means really is a team sport with the subcommittees and working with everyone to get it done. There's no way we can do this if everyone isn't on board and working forward. So thank you all very much for being here and being willing to serve. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Kaufman to walk us through our orientation. We may be doing things a bit out of order because we have folks being introduced in the Senate at the same time. So we may be hopping back and forth depending upon who's available at what time to address the items that are on our agenda today. So Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I could, if we could go ahead and do staff introductions for the Fiscal Analysis Division. We've got our team on the Zoom chat right now and ready, if that's okay with you.
That's great. Let's do it.
Okay, great. I'm Sarah Kaufman. I serve as the Assembly Fiscal Analyst. I have been with the Legislative Council Bureau for 15 years. For the last 5 years, I served as the Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst for the Assembly and was just recently appointed to the Assembly Fiscal Analyst in November. I would like to introduce a couple of individuals who are not on the call right now, but are definitely a huge part of our team. Wayne Thorley serves as the Senate Fiscal Analyst, and he was also recently appointed in November as well. He, prior to Mr. Thorley's appointment to the Senate Fiscal Analyst, he served as the Deputy Secretary of State for Elections. Also not here today is Alex Hartz, and that's Mr. Thorley's Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst. Mr. Hartz has been with the Fiscal Analysis Division for a number of years. He started here in 2008, but his career with the state actually started in 1994. And he served before joining the Fiscal Analysis Division. He served as the Division Administrator for the Nevada State Health Division. I would also like to mention that we did get two session hires today, or this session, and they're individuals that are very much have been very much a part of our team for the last numerous years, and that is Mark Krompatek. He served as the Senate Fiscal Analyst prior to Mr. Thorley's appointment. He retired in November, but he has agreed to stay with us during session as a human resource trainer. And so we're very fortunate to have Mr. Kropotkin with us. And then also Patty Sullivan retired recently in December, and she was our management analyst, and she is working as a session hire this time in a similar capacity. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brody Leiser. He's going to go through his staff presentation, and then we're going to go through and introduce each of our members of our team, and they're all going to do it individually so that you all can see everybody that works with us. So I'll turn it over now to Mr. Leiser.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brody Leiser, and I serve as Sarah's Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst on the Assembly. This will be my first session in that role, so I'm very much looking forward to working with the committee. I've worked with the Fiscal Analysis Division since 2012 and have served as a budgetary program analyst as well as a senior budgetary program analyst. And through my time with the division, my focus has primarily been on the capital improvement program, as well as the Nevada system of higher education, as well as having the Department of Corrections on my team for the last couple of sessions. So this will be my fifth regular session of the legislature with the Bureau, and would just like to say that, I'm just very much looking forward to this, and we have just an awesome group of staff that is going to help us get through all of the committee's work of the 2021 session, and we're going to do it together. So with that, I think next on tap, we have Miss Cathie Crockett. So I will turn it over to Cathie.
Morning, thanks Brody. I'm Cathie Crockett. I'm a senior analyst within the Fiscal Analysis Division. This will be my sixth session with the Fiscal Analysis Division. I also have experience in public and private sector accounting and finance. My personal assignments include the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy, which includes the Nevada Medicaid program and related budgets, the Smart 21 project, as well as the TAFA Regional Planning Agency. And Kimbra Ellsworth and Nancy Morris are on my team in the office, and I will turn it over to Kimbra.
Good morning. My name is Kimbra Ellsworth. I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in January 2018. I have extensive experience in the public sector, including 3 years with the Nevada Department of Transportation. And my agency assignments include various accounts within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, as well as the Aging and Disability Services Division and the Governor's Office of Economic Development. I'll turn it over to Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Morris. I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in September of 2019. I was a session hire during the 2019 legislative session, and I previously held product management roles at a variety of consumer products companies in Chicago. My assignments include the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation, the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs, the Governor's Office of Energy, and some of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources budgets. And I believe Team Day is up next.
Good morning. I am Stephanie Day, and I have served for over 31 years in a number of accounting and budget-related positions for the state of Nevada, including serving as the Deputy State Budget Director and the Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst to the Assembly during the 2015 legislative session. My accounts include the Judicial Branch, the State Treasurer, Veteran Services, and various budgets within the Department of Administration. This will be my third legislative session with the Fiscal Analysis Division, and on my team are John Casera and Dustin Speed, and I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you, Stephanie, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Casera, and I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in February of 2018 and have experience in financial planning and analysis in the private sector, as well as nonprofit oversight experience. My public sector experience began in 2013 and includes the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy, the Aging and Disability Services Division, and a short time with Washoe County Human Services Agency. My assignments this biennium include the Division of Child and Family Services, the Nevada System of Higher Education, the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, and I'll be playing a supporting role with Mr. Leiser with the Capital Improvement Program. I look forward to working with you all, and I'll toss it over to Dustin.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dustin Speed. I'm a program analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division. I started in October of 2019. This will be my first session. Previously, I worked with the Department of Taxation as an auditor. My current assignments are the Department of Corrections, Parole and Probation, Parole Board, Department of Sentencing Policy, and Fleet Services. And with that, I'll hand it over to Team Drost.
Thank you, Dustin. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Adam Drost, and I began working with the Fiscal Analysis Division in 2012. I previously worked for the Department of Administration and various local governments. My assignments this session include the Nevada Department of Transportation, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and various budgets within the Department of Education. This will be my 5th legislative session, and I'm fortunate to work with J. Marie Mangoba on my team, who will be introduced next. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I am J. Marie Mangoba, and I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in October 2013. I began working for the state 20 years ago, holding several positions at the Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Administration, and the Department of Transportation. My assigned accounts include various budgets within the Department of Education, the State Public Charter Authority, the Cannabis Compliance Board, the Office of the Military, the Department of Taxation, and various budgets within the Department of Administration. This will be my 4th legislative session with the Fiscal Analysis Division, and I'll turn it over to Karen.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Karen Hoppy, and I've been with the Fiscal Analysis Division for about 10 years and the State Controller's Office 11 years prior to that, so over 20 years of state service now. I'm the assigned analyst for the Secretary of State, the Director's Office of the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Indigent Defense Services, the Commission on Ethics, the Deferred Compensation Program, and various budget assignments within the Department of Public Safety. This will be my 5th legislative session with LCB and Fiscal Analysis Division. I have the pleasure of working with James Malone and Christian Tower on my team, and I'll introduce Mr. Malone next. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am James Malone. I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in February of 2018, and this will be my 2nd legislative session. Prior to working in fiscal, I worked as an accountant in the private sector. My assignments include various accounts within the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Administration, the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, and the Employee Management Relations Board. I'm looking forward to this legislative session. I'll turn it over to Christian.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Christian Tower. I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in November 2019. Before that, I served as the manager of the Health and Human Services Committee during the 2019 legislative session. I'm German in origin, but I consider Nevada my home. My assignments include the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, the Office of Workforce Innovation, the Office of Science, Innovation and Technology, and the Colorado River Commission. And with that, I hand it over to Team Waller.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Julie Waller, and I serve as a team leader to Madison Ryan and Colby Nichols. I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in 2005 and became a team leader in 2011. My assignments this session include the Office of the Attorney General, the Gaming Control Board, Business and Industry, Housing Division, as well as K12 Education. And with that, I'll turn it over to my team member. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Colby Nichols. I'm a budgetary program analyst. I first started with the state, had the opportunity to staff the Senate Finance Committee as a committee secretary and was able to join the Fiscal Analysis Division shortly after the conclusion of the 2017 session. My assignments for this session include the Division of Agriculture, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Wildlife, the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services, the Director's Office of Business and Industry, the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange, and the Division of Minerals, as well as the Nevada State Athletic Commission. And it's just a privilege and an honor to be back here again. Looking forward to the session. Thank you. And with that, I would pass it along to my colleague, Madison Ryan.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Madison Ryan, and I joined the Fiscal Analysis Division in September 2020. I recently graduated from the University of Nevada, Reno in May 2020 with a bachelor's degree in business administration, where I earned a dual major in accounting and international business with a minor in Spanish. My assignments include various budgets within the Department of Business and Industry and Department of Administration. And with that, I will turn it over to the tax team. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of Assembly Ways and Means. I'm Russell Gittin. I'm a Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst. I came to the state of Nevada in 1994, working for the Budget Office for 2 years, then went to the Gaming Control Board for 3 years, came to the Fiscal Division in the fall of 1999. This is my 11th and final regular session. We're known as the tax team, of which the other 2/3 you'll meet here shortly. We're responsible for staffing the two revenue committees. We're also responsible for administering the fiscal note statutory provisions, as well as staffing the economic forum and preparing forecasts that are presented to that body. And with that, I'll ask Michael and Joe to introduce themselves.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Michael Nakamoto. I'm a Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division. This is my 8th session with LCB Fiscal. I started in November of 2005. In all of those 8 sessions, I have served in many of the things that Mr. Gittin just referred to. My primary role this session will be serving as staff for the Assembly Committee on Revenue. So several of you who are on this committee, I will see you later this afternoon as we go through our first Assembly Revenue Committee. And I will turn it over to Mr. Reel.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Joe Reel, and I've been a Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau since January of 2008, and this will now be my 7th legislative session. Prior to my service with the LCB, I worked for the Nevada Commission on Economic Development and also as an economist with the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation. And so I've now been with the state for more than 26 years. I served as committee staff for the Senate Revenue and Economic Development Committee for each session since 2009. And I will again serve in that same role during the 2021 session. And I earned my Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Nevada, Reno. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Harvey.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Harvey, and I've been with the Fiscal Analysis Division for 18 years. My position as a management analyst supports not only the office as a whole, but also with the Senate and Assembly fiscal analysts in drafting meeting agendas, timely and accurately, and tracking bills. I also assist the tax team with the fiscal notes, and this will be my 10th legislative session with the Fiscal Analysis Division.
Madam Chair, that concludes the professional staff that we have for the Fiscal Analysis Division. As you can see, we've got a tremendous team with us who has exceptional experience. I would like to identify some of our administrative staff that will be assisting you this session too. Our office manager is Becky Lowe, and she has a team of 4 assistants as well, and those include Donna Thomas, Judy Lyons, Carla Ulrich, and Kat Theris. And so with that, Madam Chair, I would like to turn this over now to Mary O'Hare so she can introduce or have her team be introduced, which is the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means Committee staff.
Morning. I retired from the legislature after 25 years of service 18 months ago. Had not planned on coming back. I was kind of enjoying my retirement, but my husband lost his job like many other people in the pandemic. So I appreciate the opportunity to come back and work for all of you. Please let me know if you need anything. I'm here to help and hopefully get things done the way we need to. And boy, I look really red today. Ann Bowen is our next up, and she was having difficulties with her connection. So I'm going to, Ann, why don't you unmute yourself and see.
Ms. Bowen, this is broadcast. If you are on your phone, you'll want to press *6 to unmute.
I already have. Okay. My name is Ann Bowen. I'm originally from Indiana, but I've lived in Nevada for 40 years. And I retired from the State Public Defender's Office in 2002 and worked my first session in 2003. I have worked 10 sessions, all on Ways and Means, and I think all sessions are different, but well the same. This session will probably take the prize for being different. Thank you.
I'll go next. Good morning. My name is Adam Cates. I grew up in Nevada, and after about 20 years living in New York City, I moved back this past year due to the pandemic, but I am happy to be home, and this is my first time as a committee secretary. I'm going to pass it over now to Anna Freeman.
Good morning. My name is Anna Freeman. I have lived most of my life in Nevada. I've been in Northern Nevada here in Reno since I came up to UNR many moons ago. This is my very first session, and I'm excited to serve on the Ways and Means as a committee secretary.
Good morning. My name is Carmen Neviu. I received my undergraduate degree in elementary education from Trinity College, and then I received my MBA from the University of Vermont. I grew up in Vermont. I worked for the Vermont Agency of Transportation for almost 30 years, and I retired as a budget director. My husband and I then packed up and moved to Dayton, Nevada the next day after I retired, and we've been here for 5 years now. This is my third session. Thank you. Corrine?
Hi, I'm in the 3137, and this is my first year with the Assembly. I worked 15 years at the state, 5 years with the Supreme Court as a language access coordinator, and 10 years with the Attorney General's office as the domestic violence ombudsman. I'm excited to be here, and I'm going to pass it over to Janice Wright.
This is broadcast. Can you use the microphone in the room, Ms. Wright, and mute the microphone for the Zoom? Just press mute on Zoom when you speak.
My name is Janice Wright, and I'm today's committee secretary for Ways and Means. This is my 7th session as a committee secretary with Ways and Means. I started my career with the Department of Taxation in Nevada. Then I went to the Health Division as their chief financial officer, then the administrator of healthcare financing and policy, or that was Medicaid, and finally I was the senior deputy treasurer for the state of Nevada. After retiring for 30 years, I came to Ways and Means, and it's a great change. I love it. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm the committee assistant for Ways and Means. My name is Betnimra, but everyone just calls me Bet. This is my first year doing this, and I'm real excited. And that is all.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Burke. I worked for Fiscal for many, many years when I still had hair on my head. This is my second session as a proofreader, and I'm really happy to be here again. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Ferguson. Some of you might recognize me. I spent the last 20 years in the Fiscal Analysis Division, 10 sessions. This will be my first as a proofreader, and kind of looking forward to seeing things from this side and not having to spend all that overtime like the fiscal people do, but looking forward to this session. Thank you. Turn it over to Mary.
Sarah, that's our team, and back to you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes our staff introductions. Would you like me now to proceed then to the orientation manual?
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman, and to everyone. You did a fantastic job on handing it off to each other and coordinating all across Carson City, I am sure. So committee members, as you can see, we have hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years of dedication and expertise to this committee. So we're not in this alone. We'll all get this done together. So thank you, Sarah and Brody and all of your staff. We look forward to all being in the same building again. That would be great. So, but everybody stay safe now. Thank you all for coming back and helping the state out. So Ms. Kaufman, if you'd like to go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are going to transition to the orientation. All of you should have received a binder in your office that is entitled Assembly Committee on Ways and Means Orientation Manual. It looks like this. And in that binder, you should have a PowerPoint presentation. And the PowerPoint presentation looks very similar to this. We will be walking through this in hard copy form. I'm not going to provide a presentation for you to follow on the screen, but I will be identifying the page numbers that I'm going to be on. So if you would like to walk through, I'll be speaking from the PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll turn this over to Mr. Leiser, and he's going to walk you through the various sections of some of this orientation manual. So to begin on page 2 of your PowerPoint presentation, as you just recently saw, we have a tremendous team. We have 21 professional staff within the Fiscal Analysis Division and 5 clerical positions. We are co-managed in the Fiscal Analysis Division with myself as the Assembly Fiscal Analyst and Mr. Thorley as the Senate Fiscal Analyst. He has his own principal deputy fiscal analyst, who is Alex Hartz, and my principal deputy fiscal analyst, who you all will get to know very well, is Brody Leiser. Moving on to page 3 is a timeline that identifies the budget development process. And the one thing I want to identify on this page is that the budget development process really begins almost a year to today in terms of being able to start the process. So in February 27, 2020, the Governor's Finance Office did a budget kickoff meeting where the agencies began developing their budgets. So we have been working on this budget for almost a year. So maybe starting point today, but we have been we've had our hands into this for a very long time. On September 1st is when the agencies are required to submit their agency request budget to both the Governor's Finance Office as well as the Fiscal Analysis Division. And then on January 18th, we actually received the transmittal of the executive budget, so the governor's budget, which is due 14 days in advance of the first day of session. Moving on to page 4, this slide provides a timeline of the various events that occurred during session. And so, as you all are aware, we started session yesterday, which is February 1st. February 2nd is today, and we began our committee organization. And then tomorrow, which is February 3rd, the committees will begin hearing budgets. Now, the budget hearing schedule goes all the way through March 30th. And the Economic Forum will meet in May to determine how much general fund revenue will be available for the legislature to fund the 2021-23 biennium. And so typically the deadline for the Economic Forum is on May 1st. However, May 1st, this session is on a Saturday. And so the statute provides that if May 1st falls on a Saturday or a Sunday, that they're allowed 2 more business days. And so that's why Economic Forum is scheduled for May 4th. Now, moving into further into May, there's deadlines for resolutions of budget differences. The Fiscal Analysis Division will keep track of the decisions that are made by the Senate Committee on Finance and the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. And there will be times when both committees make different decisions. And so at that point, we have to get the committees together and we have to make sure that the decisions are unified and that we can then implement those decisions into the money bills. On May 26th is when the budget bills are scheduled to be introduced. And so I want to just highlight the fact that once the budget bills are introduced, that's really when all of the other money bills can be passed. So as we're going through session, Assembly Ways and Means can be hearing bills that have appropriations in it. They can even be voting on them and sending them over to the Senate Committee on Finance. But Senate Committee on Finance has to sit on those before they actually vote on those bills, because there is a provision within the Constitution that indicates that the K12 funding must be approved first by both houses before any other appropriations can be approved. And so we have 5 very, very short days to get all of the money bills, including the 5 major money bills that I'll talk about a little bit later, and then all of the bills that have appropriations or authorizations in it from both houses and passed before May 31st, which is sine die. Moving on to the next slide on page 5, there's just some statutory references. And the big one that I want to point out is NRS 353-150 to NRS 353-246, and that is the State Budget Act. That's the provisions that our staff look at extensively, and that's what governs most of what Ways and Means does. Moving on to slide number 6, regarding the Economic Forum. I would just note that the Economic Forum did meet on December 3rd, and they provided a projection for the governor's budget. And I apologize, there is a typo on this page. It indicates that there's $4.1 billion for fiscal year 2020, and that's incorrect. It's fiscal year 2022. And then $4.4 billion for fiscal year 2023. So that's the amount that the governor was required to get his budget to be within. Moving on to page 7, there's a discussion of the reserve, the general fund reserve, and there's a provision that indicates that the governor must provide not less than a 5% reserve in his budget when he submits it to the legislature. And so for this upcoming biennium, the governor provided an unappropriated balance of $220.5 million for fiscal year 2022. which is $3.5 million above that 5% requirement. And then in 2023, the governor provided an unappropriated balance of $247.7 million, which is roughly $30.3 million above that 5% requirement. On slide number 8 is a discussion of the expenditure limits. And there is a requirement that basically says that the legislature cannot exceed a certain expenditure limit. However, we're pretty far from that. The total expenditures are based off of a pegged rate from what was expended in the beginning of July 1st, 1975. And that amount then increases each year based off of population and inflation. The executive budget was $2.1 billion below what our expenditure cap is. So it's pretty far from the cap right now. On page 9 is just a breakdown of the functional areas of the executive budget. And so with the executive budget, I apologize, I've got sirens in my background. The executive budget is over 3,000 pages long. And so in order to try and make this a little bit more consumable, they break it up into functional areas. And so you could see, for example, the public safety functional area includes departments such as the Department of Corrections, the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Motor Vehicles, and then Peace Officer Standards and Trainings. And so it gets compartmentalized a little bit so that we can view it all in chunks. On page 10 of the PowerPoint presentation is just a pie chart that identifies what the general fund appropriations are by function. And the thing that I would like to point out with this particular slide is the fact that if you add up human services and K12, that roughly estimate that is approximately 2/3 of all general fund appropriations. And so you could see then on the table just below it that the governor's budget has approximately $8.7 billion in general fund appropriations that are recommended. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brody Elizer so he can walk you through some of the parts associated with the binder that we provided you on the orientation manual. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, for the record, Brody Elizer. So I'm starting on page 11 of your PowerPoint document. And if you have the binder in front of you as well, if you could turn to page 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a very high level overview of the executive budget documents, as well as talk a little bit about expanded program narratives, confidential briefing documents, and closing documents. And we'll be working in coordination with both the PowerPoint presentation and your binder material. So I will do my best to reference page numbers as I go along. So I believe everyone has been introduced to the format of the executive budget. So I will keep this at a very high level. But we have taken an excerpt from the governor's recommended budget as an example, and specifically for the Department of Health and Human Services and the Division of Child and Family Services. On page 5, this is a representation of the department level summary that you'll see in the executive budget. It includes a description of the department, highlights identified by the executive branch that are included in the governor's recommendation, as well as a pie chart and breakdown of the source of funds for the department, as well as activities that have been identified for that particular department. If you flip to page 6, you'll see a very similar page or very similar format. And what this is now a breakdown of the division level. So as you are all aware, department similar to HHS can have several divisions within it. So this page now provides the same information as the previous page, but at the division level. And again, the same information, and you'll notice the right-hand side, the two pie charts, again, it's the source of funds, and then in this case, it's the activities for the specific division, in this case, Division of Child and Family Services, that I will probably start referencing as DCFS. As most of you know, we use a lot of acronyms in this committee, and if I start using acronyms that you are not familiar with, please feel free to stop me and I will define those. So on the next 4 pages, then you'll see a page for each of the activities identified for the division. It'll give you a summary of what the activity is, as well as the individual performance measures that are associated with that activity. This will provide useful information to understand how the division is measuring up to the standards and goals that have been set through these performance indicators. And then on the right-hand side of this page, you will also see a funding breakdown for the particular activity. This division does have 4 activities, so I don't plan on going through each of those pages, but if you can turn to page 11, the next section that you will see in the executive budget will be a breakdown of the budget account details. So now within the division, there could be several or multiple budget accounts that that division is responsible for. And you'll see a breakdown or detail sheets for each of those budget accounts within the division. Again, the breakdown will provide a high-level overview or description of the program area for that particular budget. And then it'll go into the line item details for the base budget, as well as the maintenance and enhancement decision units. So really quickly, what you'll see on page 11, in the base budget, you'll see amounts that are reflected in the actual year column, that is the fiscal year 2020, actual revenues and expenditures recorded in that particular budget, as well as the work program column, which would represent the authorized amounts in the current fiscal year 21, for both revenues and expenditures. And then throughout all the pages, you will see columns for both the agency requested budget amounts for each fiscal year, as well as the governor's recommended amount that are part of the executive budget. So as you turn through the pages, you'll see beginning on page 12, the maintenance decision units begin there with the M100. Typically, those are the decision units that will address inflationary adjustments or fringe-related adjustments. If an agency has caseloads, this is where you would also see the caseload decision units. And then beginning towards the bottom of page 13 in this example, this is where you will start to see the enhancement decision units that are recommended by the governor in his budget for the upcoming biennium. And finally, on pages 14 and 15, there is a summary section for each budget account that then shows the net effect of all of the decision units within that particular budget. I do want to just point out really quickly, at the top of page 14, you will see an E999 decision unit. And what that represents is decision units that were requested by the agency, but not included in the governor's recommended budget. Now, what I would note with these is that if there were multiple decision units requested by an agency, but not included in the governor's recommended budget, this section will take the net effect of all of those decision units. And the other thing that I would point out here is that just because you may see a E999 decision unit that shows an unfunded request, that does not necessarily mean the request is not included in the governor's executive budget. And I think a good example of that would be a request that agencies may have made for equipment, computer replacements, or maintenance on their facilities. that the governor has moved and requested as part of a one-shot appropriation. And those would be listed in the one-shot, the list of the one-shot appropriations. So just something to keep in mind that while something may show up in the E999 decision unit in the executive budget, it does not necessarily mean that it's not recommended by it. And that will bring me to page 12 of your PowerPoint. And if you flip to just a couple pages in your binder, on page 17, there's an example of an expanded program narrative. These have historically been requested by the chair of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, and they provide additional information on the budget and program areas recommended by the governor for various agencies. Information includes state and federal laws applicable to the agency, an identification or explanation of new programs or modifications to existing programs, a summary of the agency's performance indicators, as well as information on workload statistics. And that could include caseload information, number of clients served, inmate population information for the Department of Corrections as an example. So moving on to slide 13 in the PowerPoint presentation. The next area that I'm going to go through is the budget hearing process and then the closings. And first, we have the full committee and subcommittee hearings. I would note just on slide 13, the first bolded sentence there. If you could turn to page 33 in your binder, that will provide you an example of the confidential briefing documents that we provide. And in the PowerPoint, on that sentence, it should reference Exhibit 2B, not 2C, but just a slight technical adjustment to correct that PowerPoint. And so on page 33 is, like I said, this is an example of the confidential briefing documents that the Fiscal Analysis Division prepares and provides for each budget account scheduled to be heard either by the full committees or by the subcommittees for each day. These are provided in advance of the budget hearings and are provided to help focus the discussion on the governor's recommendation. What I do not plan on going through the document itself in detail, but what I would say is that these documents will provide you a summary of significant areas of the governor's recommended budget and will provide you with details beyond what is summarized in the printed version of the executive budget or the PDF version if you're looking at that online. The next area or example that we'd like to talk about is the work session document. And there's an example of a work session document on page 39 of your binder. Budget work sessions may be scheduled for some of the larger and more complex budgets that could not be adequately reviewed during the budget hearing process. This could, in the past, we've seen work sessions for K12 education, higher education, some health and human services budgets, capital improvement program. The work sessions are used to dive a little bit further into an issue or decision point that the committee or subcommittee may have to make. And these, again, are documents that are prepared by your fiscal staff and will provide hopefully some additional information beyond what was covered in the budget hearing. And at times will provide several options for the committee or subcommittee to consider, and basically will lay the groundwork for some of the more complex issues so that the committee or subcommittee is prepared or has the additional information needed to make a closing decision. I believe in 2019 we had 5 work sessions to try and put that into perspective. So not every budget or not every agency will require a work session. It's probably, I guess, one of my favorite answers to questions in this division is this depends. depends on what's in that budget. So if you can move to page 14 of the PowerPoint presentation, the next area that we're going to talk about is the subcommittee closing. And in your binder material, if you turn to page 55, there begins an example of a closing document. Again, the Fiscal Analysis Division will provide this subcommittee with closing documents for each of the budgets being closed that day. And this would apply as well to the full committee closings for those agencies that are heard and closed directly in full committee, such as your constitutional officers. These budget closing documents are distributed to the subcommittee members, as well as representatives of the governor's finance office and state agency representatives during the budget closing hearing. And what I would, the example that you have for a DCFS budget for Summit View Youth Center, you take the time to go through that example, you'll see this is a fairly lengthy closing document that had a pretty significant issue for discussion last session. Not every closing document you will see will be this lengthy for particular issues, but I'd like to draw your attention to page 65 of the example. And the reason being is I just want to reiterate that during the closings in subcommittee, the subcommittees will vote on and take action for closing items. Those items then become recommendations that go to the full committee for consideration. So if you look towards the bottom of page 65, this is this particular example. There was 5 different options to be considered by the subcommittee. And following the subcommittee closing, your fiscal staff will memorialize those decisions made by the subcommittees, and we'll put those into the closing document. And that's what you see in the text towards the bottom of this document with the box around it. And it reads, the subcommittee recommended approval. I'm going to stop there and not read to you. But my point being is this is where, again, we will memorialize the recommendations that the subcommittee is making to the full committee. Which brings me to slide 15 of your PowerPoint presentation, and that's the full committee closing. And if you can turn to page 69 of your binder material, there's an example of what we refer to as the subcommittee closing report. So an overview of the subcommittee's closing recommendations will be presented to the full committees by your fiscal staff, and will identify and summarize the decisions made by the sub. The full committee will be provided not only this the summary document or report that you see the example of beginning on page 69, but following that report will also be each of the various closing documents for the budgets that are part of this agency or part of the division. I would just note that the full committee, most instances, will accept the recommendations of the subcommittee, but they are not binded to accept those recommendations of the subcommittee and may make modifications, or at times the full committees will need to resolve differences between the Ways and Means subcommittee members, and the Senate Finance subcommittee members in the event that those subcommittees vote differently on a closing action. As well as there are times where a subcommittee will defer the decision on a closing item to the full committee. And in that event, that deferral would be identified in the subcommittee closing report, and the full committee would then make final determination on that closing. So with that, that covers the information that I was going to go over with the budget hearing and closing process and the materials in your binder, and we'll turn it back over to Ms. Coffey.
Thank you, Mr. Leiser. I would just like to make a couple of points related to the materials that Mr. Leiser provided you, in that these were all examples from materials that were provided from last session. And this session, we've taken just a little bit different approach on the format associated with the briefing documents that are provided for hearings. There will be a much more succinct upfront description or narrative where it identifies what the request is, what the issues might be, and then future decisions that need to be made by the committee upon the closing. And so those are things that we've incorporated into our documents. I would also point out too that for those of you who have been in the policy world a little bit and are new to our fiscal world, the work session for the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means budget hearings are really quite different than what you would consider a work session as it relates to the committee or the policy committees, and that a work session for a bill is basically just approving or going through the approval process of it, whereas our work sessions and how we identify work sessions is basically to delve into the matter a little bit further so that the subcommittees can hone in on the decisions that they have to make. So I just wanted to make those two distinctions. Moving on to page 16 of the PowerPoint presentation is some narrative related to the 5 major money bills. And you'll hear us say that quite often. There's 5 bills that we really pay attention to. And one of the most important ones is the education funding bill. And the reason why I say it's the most important is that there is a provision, as I indicated earlier, within our Constitution that indicates that the K12 education funding bill must be passed before any other appropriations can be enacted over the biennium. So if this bill doesn't move and isn't approved within both houses, nothing else can move. And so that's the key distinction for this. This bill contains the appropriations for K12 public education for basic support. Moving on to the next bill is the Appropriations Act, and that provides the appropriations for both the general fund and the highway funds. It also contains back language, which is essentially some direction that's provided by the legislature as to how these funds should be spent. The Authorizations Act provides authorizations for the receipt of expenditures of non-general fund revenue. So I want to make the distinction here that an authorization is essentially allowing an agency to accrue revenues that are non-general funded. So for example, if there's a fee that this agency collects, it can collect that amount up to the maximum that's provided for in the Authorizations Act. Whereas in the Appropriations Act, there is a direct general fund appropriation that is provided from the general fund to the agency at the very beginning of the year. So they have their money and it goes throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, they'll revert that any general funds that are left over at the end of the year, versus an authorization, which is basically the legislature allowing an agency to bring in revenues and spend them up to a certain amount. The next major money bill is the Capital Improvements Bill, and that provides state general funds and highway funds, as well as provides authority to the State Board of Finance for the issuance of general obligation bonds for a program of capital improvement projects. And then lastly is the pay bill, and that provides the maximum salaries for any unclassified employees. And it also provides back language for any salary instructions that are required. For example, sometimes we put money in there for COLAs, or we provide certain specifications as to, if there are additional 5% that are funded for other agencies. On the next slide, page number 17, we discussed the 2 publications that the Fiscal Analysis Division compiles. The first is the fiscal report, and our office is working on that right now, and we should have that to you by the end of February. And the fiscal report is basically just a summary of what is included in the executive budget, along with some historical information about about revenues as well as expenditures and an overview on various tax implications. The other report that we publish is the appropriations report, and that is typically developed after session, and it provides a summary of all the legislative, budgetary, and taxation actions taken by the Nevada Legislature. We take that and then we also compare it then to the governor's recommended budget as well. So that's a good comparison as to what the governor recommended and then what the legislature approved. And the last slide just basically discusses what the money committees do during the interim. This committee does a lot of work during session, but its work doesn't necessarily end at the end of session. It continues on during the interim through membership of the Interim Finance Committee, which was established pursuant to NRS 218E 400. And originally it was established in order for the Interim Finance Committee to provide allocations from the IFC contingency account. So the IFC contingency account is an account that has general fund revenues and or general fund appropriations. And if an agency determines that there is an unforeseen expense that it needs to cover during the interim, it can approach the IFC and seek authority, seek approval from the IFC for additional revenues. The Interim Finance Committee is also responsible for several other approvals, and that includes the transfer of funds between state agencies, the approval of gifts and grants over a certain threshold, and then also the IFC also approves certain position reclassifications. And with that, Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation, and Mr. Leiser and myself would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman and Mr. Leiser. We appreciate it. Committee members, I know there was a lot here. You just got the next 118 days explained to you in a matter of 15 minutes. So don't feel overwhelmed. There's a calendar. Sarah and Brody have us scheduled out to be done on time. And if you do have any questions, you can always come talk to me or any other members of the committee that have been on it before. We're happy to go over some of these things with you. I found my first year of being on Ways and Means, the more notes that I kept so that when I had to go back, you'll hear something in the near future and may not make a decision point on that for 3 or 4 weeks. So in order to make sure that you remember where you were and what your concerns were in a certain budget, keep those notes, bring those documents back. If anyone would like to see how I arrange my workbook or how I try to keep track of anything, I'd be more than happy to walk you through it to help you stay organized so that when that first decision point comes, you're not deer in headlights wondering, oh my goodness, what did I think of that 4 weeks ago? So just try to keep track of everything, and we're all here to help each other. And if you're ever stuck, Sarah and Brody and the rest of the committee members are always available to help with that. So Mr. Leiser, I don't see any Cubs paraphernalia in the background there. I don't see you flying the W. What's up there?
Well, to be honest with you, Madam Chair, I almost pulled out the Cubs tie today just for you, but I figured I would wait.
That's okay. Opening day has been postponed this year. We won't have an opening day. It won't be till July, but that's okay. When spring training hits, we'll have to have a conversation. So we do things with baseball analogies in this committee a lot. So you guys will just all get used to that. I believe Assemblywoman Titus has a question.
Thank you for the binder. Thank you for the great presentation. I think it's very helpful, even if having sat on this many times before, a good review is always helpful. Within that binder, you included on the left-hand side, the budget closing recommendations. Are we going to discuss those, that draft subject to change, the yellow and the blue highlights?
Yes, Assemblywoman, that's one of our other items that we'll be talking about today.
Perfect. We just had a general agenda, so I wasn't sure when that was coming up. Thank you.
Yeah, we're working our way through it. So are there any committee members, especially new committee members? If you have a question that you'd like to ask now, please do. If not, I'll be happy to take it offline, or Ms. Kaufman or Mr. Leiser will be happy to answer it for you. So does anyone else have any questions? Sometimes it's hard to tell. So I don't think so. I think we're good. I think they're dumbfounded right now. So, okay. So with that, Ms. Kaufman, what's next on our agenda? You are the taskmaster today.
Madam Chair, we have two other items for the committee to address, and that is there is a presentation on the committee rules as well as the staff closing list. And I will ask that you identify which one you'd like to do.
Let's go ahead and take care of the committee policies right now and have a conversation about that, since we are in this new world of committee meetings. So if you'd like to go ahead and just walk us through those committee policies for 2021, and then I'll open it up to any questions or concerns that the committee members might have.
Certainly, Madam Chair. The Assembly Committee on Ways and Means rules can be heard or can be found on the website, but there should have also been a printed copy that was provided to you as well. They are on the meeting site, though, for your review. I would just walk you briefly through some of the key issues that are identified on the Ways and Means rules. Item number 2 relates to exhibits, and that the exhibits must be submitted electronically to the committee manager by 1 p.m. the business day prior to the meeting. In that item number 2, the second bullet requires 35 copies of an exhibit be provided to the committee manager. However, if the meeting is being held virtually, the copies of the exhibits are not required. Moving on to item number 3, there's a little bit of distinctions between whether the committee is being managed in person and whether the committee is being virtual. And so I would just note on item 3, video conferencing is limited. And so if you could request your video conferencing 3 days in advance to the committee manager, they would appreciate that. And that is if we are actually in the committee room. If we're not in the committee room, this doesn't apply. Also along those lines of if we are in the committee room, if you need video monitors for the meeting, that also needs to be requested 3 days in advance, just to make sure that there is the equipment available. And again, that's if we are in the committee room. While operating virtually, the chair has asked that all members keep their cameras on, and unless they step away from their area for any particular reason. I would also note on item number 9 that if we are meeting virtual, the chair has instructed that there will be a roll call vote for any actions taken by the committee. Item 10 indicates that the subcommittee makes closing recommendations regarding the assigned budgets to the full committee, but it is the full committee that makes the actual determination or votes on the decisions for those budgets. And then I would just note on item number 11, definite action on individual budgets will require a majority of the entire committee. So that would be 8 members of Ways and Means, and a 2/3 majority of the entire committee is required for a reconsideration of action for an individual budget. And I believe that concludes the rules, Madam Chair.
Okay, committee members. So with that, especially since we are meeting virtually, in order to maintain a quorum and so that the public sees that we are actually here, it is very important for you to keep your cameras on during the meeting. We know there are moments where people need to take a moment, but please do keep your cameras on as much as possible. And I know we are meeting with a lot of electronics around us, but if we could keep our attention to what's being presented in front of us, I know we're all in that position of thinking we can multitask, but sometimes we need to just set that other device aside and hone in on what's being presented and discussed in front of us so that we don't get distracted and possibly miss something that might be very important to you. And also that even though we are meeting virtually, this is a committee meeting, same decorum applies moving forward. This committee was excellent over the interim in respecting that. So please keep that in the backs of your minds. This truly is this is the committee meeting. So we would expect folks to have the same level of compliance that they would as if they were in the actual committee room. So if that committee members, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Madam Chair, may I?
Speaker, please.
Thank you, and I apologize. I ironically had to step to go to the restroom for part of what you just said, but when we're talking about decorum, did you already address our practice with respect to attire and not relaxing that as well, just because we are operating virtually?
In a way I did, but we can make it much clearer. Coats and ties, ladies, you know what your attire is. This committee did a great job during the interim, but we want to reiterate that the public will be tuning in and we will treat this with the same respect as we would any other committee meeting. So thank you, Speaker, for making that perfectly clear. And we always want to, establish a professionalism and respect and working with each other. So those will be our touchstones in how this committee operates moving forward. As I said earlier, this really is a team sport in this committee. There is a lot to get done and I need everyone's help to do it. So any other questions? Seeing none? Okay, that's great. We appreciate it. And with that, Ms. Kaufman, I believe we can go ahead and go to the staff closing lists. If you'd like to walk us through that briefly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, in your binder, you should have received a document that looks like this. It has basically all of the budgets that you all will be reviewing over the course of this session. I would note that there are 479 budgets that are provided for in the executive budget. Staff is recommending that 204 be considered staff closing. And what that means essentially is we will have hearings on the budgets that have major issues. So if there are new programs, if there are position eliminations, if there are significant changes within the budget, those have been identified by your staff as budgets that need to have a hearing. However, there are a ton of budgets, 204 to be exact, that really don't have anything that they're requesting. So they could be asking for maybe money for a computer or maybe something where it was just a minor technical issue, a subscription of something. And so these are very minor issues. And so rather than presenting these in a hearing form to all of you, we present them to you as a closing item when we go through the closing. So you all will still approve all of these budgets. However, there just won't be a hearing for the ones that we have identified as staff closings. And so this is just a preliminary list. And as Chair Carlton has indicated to me, and obviously you may wish to confirm this, Madam Chair, that if all of you could take a look at this list and get back to Chair Carlton within the week of any budgets that have been identified as staff close that you would actually like to have a hearing on. that would be greatly appreciated, because then we're going to have to go in and get them scheduled. And so we've got a preliminary schedule that we've already developed, and so we just need to make sure that we get that included in there.
And thank you, Ms. Kaufman. So yes, as you heard, we have 479 budgets. There's 204 of them. That does not include all the bills that we get at the end of the session. We're one of the committees that gets a lot of bills that needs to be processed at the very end of the session. So committee members, if you would go through and take a look at this, I'd like your responses to this by Friday, please. And if there is a request, please reach out to me. We'll have a conversation about it. I'll try to answer any questions that you might have about these issues, if there's a level of comfort that we can get you to. But if you still request it to come off and actually schedule a hearing, I'll be happy to work with you and with staff to build it into one of our hearings. So if you would go through this, and I really do need to know this by Friday, so that we can finish. We've already scheduled out for 2 months now. So we have a lot on our plates. Any questions? Assemblywoman Titus, you had a question about this earlier.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And that was clarification. What I wanted to know, especially for our members new to this committee, how much time did we have? This is the first day we're seeing this, so we get our chance to look at it. I have multiple ones circled that I'll pull, and I'll do my homework. I'll pull the governor's budget, make sure that I'm comfortable with them. If not, I wanted to know how much time we had before we could reach out to you and say, hey, I think this needs a whole hearing. So I appreciate that information and the updates. Thank you.
You're welcome. And staff is always available too, but knowing the level of experience that they have when they looked at these, the original list they gave me, we did pull a few of them off because we thought they were important in conjunction with other budgets because they all fit together. But the final analysis was in these particular budgets, there was not something that would warrant the hearing, but respecting all committee members and the work that they want to do, just let me know and we'll be happy to work on it. And Ms. Kaufman and Mr. Leiser are available also to you if you do have any questions. Okay. Any other questions from any other committee members on the staff closings? Not seeing anyone else. So I think that's good. Ms. Kaufman, what is left on our to-do list today?
I believe that is it, Madam Chair. I do believe we are required to take a vote on the rules.
Oh, yes, we do. We do need to adopt the rules. I apologize. We moved right into budget closings there. So we'll go ahead and go, since folks have had a chance to think about the rules for a moment. Are there any other questions or comments on the standing policies for the 81st session for the Ways and Means Committee? Hearing no questions or comments, hello?
Hi, this is Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. I motion to accept the rules as presented to us.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe Moreno. Excellent vice chair job in making the motion. Appreciate that. And I'll accept a second from Dr. Titus. That's fine. I have a second from Dr. Titus. Any questions or comments on the motion? And because we are meeting virtually, we will take the roll call vote for this. And I believe, Ms. Kaufman, will that be your duty this session, or will that be committee secretary?
I believe that is committee secretary as well.
All righty. So if the committee secretary would please call the roll.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Yes.
Assemblyman Frierson.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Yes.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Yes.
Assemblyman Levitt. Assemblywoman Miller.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Yes.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Titus.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Tolles,
Yes.
Assemblyman Watts,
Yes.
Chair Carlton,
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has passed.
Unmute myself, thank you. If I had a nickel for every time we say I need to unmute, we could probably balance the budget. So with that, committee members, I believe that addresses our work that we have for today. We will, Ms. Kaufman, is there anything else we need to go over?
Madam Chair, there are no other items.
Thank you very much. So with that, committee members, we will go ahead and open it up to public comment. It's 9:34. We'll give folks a minute or so to be able to tune in or call in for public comment. So if everyone would just stand at ease for a couple of moments, and then we will open up public comment.
Chair, the public comment line is open and working. There's no callers at this time, so we'll give it another minute, like you said, and I'll let you know if anybody jumps in.
Thank you very much. I know we're on a bit of a delay, so.
Copy that. Chair, this is Michael from Broadcast. The public line is open and working. There's still no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. I believe we've given folks enough time as far as public comment goes today. So with that, committee, seeing or hearing no other business to come before us, thank you all very much for your first virtual meeting of this session. And I look forward to working with all of you. So we are adjourned, and we'll see you later on today. Thank you all very much.